Generally, we don't have a dovetail log house to take and do, so I've made up this jig that can demonstrate the gap between the logs in a log house. Generally, they try and keep them around 3 to 5 inches or less, and you should always keep a gap in here, in between your logs on a dovetail house. Having built them for years, you have to be able to put insulation in there, and some people will take them bring them right down and touching, and it just causes problems because you can't get nothing in there. So what I'm going to do here is this foam I use for a backer. I used to use styrofoam, but styrofoam has a tendency to shrink and deform, and it won't move with the logs. It's too rigid. So I've started using this foam. It's a closed cell foam. It's very flexible. You can take and twist it and everything else. And what you do first is you'd set it up on your log like this, and then tack it there. Now this you do all the way down your log. I used to go 4-foot pieces at a time. And now this is using a log scriber. You can buy them, there's not too many places have them. They're Welbeck Sawmill in north of Durham, Ontario, and Lee Valley, I think, carry scribers as well. This one is one I made when I built started making log houses 30 years ago. This is an indelible pencil. It's reactive to water. If you take in it'll leave a line. A normal pencil won't. Okay? Now these pencils they're from Germany. I think you get them at an art supply. I usually buy all mine from Welbeck Sawmill north of Durham. But anyhow, so now this is set up here. To take and scribe this, you take and find your widest point here on the log. Now this is to put your backer for your chinking. You just find the widest spot, and then you set your scribers for that. Now, the one thing you have to keep in mind when you're scribing this is that you have to keep this point directly below this point. If you take and lean it, then you're not going to be following the pattern below. It's going to shift it off, so you have to keep it straight above it. You just slightly wet it like that, and then you just lift it up to the top, going in about the same depth in the top. And now traces your pattern there. Now, the next thing to do, the reason I cut this stuff in this manner is I have a sample of the chinking here, the way it's done. You'll see that it's like a wedge on either edge, and it's about 1/8 of an inch thick in the middle. This is so it'll give a better bond on the edges. It gives it more strength, and it allows it to stretch, because you can take this, stretch it right out, you can't tear it, eh? So what I do is, to cut this, I'll follow this line like this. It's extremely easy to cut. Cut an angle on that all the way down.
Then you get a better bonding surface.
Yeah, you get at your edges, it'll be 1/4 of an inch thick instead of being 1/8 of an inch thick in the middle. So.
How do you know the angle to cut on?
Just generally, sometimes you'll get a log that has a very vertical surface, and it's very difficult to scribe it to it, but you just take and cut the back a little bit more. Generally, I do it in about a 45-degree angle. This will sit in here. Now what I used for putting this on is plastic staples, like a nylon staple. And the reason I like to use nylon staples is this chinking will stick to steel like, like nothing else. As I said, you got to cut it off. Okay? And what happens if you got a newer log house and the logs move, where the steel staples are, it'll pull the chinking back. So you look down your house and you see all these dimples all the way along, whereas the chinking will let go of plastic. It won't adhere to it. So that's what I use in here. Now this will sit in here,
Nice fit.
just like that, and you just go along. I spent quite a few years developing all this, because every time I ran into problems, I had to figure out how I was going to solve it. So it took me a while to search to find these, because they're not available just everywhere. Eh? So now that's all set up now. The next stage is just to apply your chinking.
If that were a water-based chink joint, how thick would you have to put it on?
Have to be about almost a half an inch thick.
With this product, how thick are you going to put it on?
It'll be about a quarter at the edges, and it'll be an eighth of an inch in the middle.
So you're using about a third of the chinking material.
Yeah,
Wow.
about a third. And plus the fact too, with this stuff, if you hit it, if you had styrofoam back there, it would take and break, and it would deform your chinking as well, eh? So, and so anyhow, I'll take and put this on. Now I try and give it as close as possible to each other. Now these Albion guns, I have a gun that is by hand, and I did a few houses with that. I just about destroyed my wrist. It's just constantly squeezing. I have one up there, but these electric guns are great. But the one thing I found with the electric gun is you have to drill some holes around the edge of the gun to keep the air from being pushed up and coming out in the chinking, because it'll create air bubbles in it. Eh? And then you run into a difficulty of trying to get them out, and it's not the easiest thing to do. It can look like it's got a bad case of acne. I have a number of chisels, or not chisels, but trowels that I use. I've made them up all different sizes. I try and use the widest one I can. I have one that's wider, but it's too wide for this. As the wider, the better. Eh? And again, using the isopropyl alcohol, just fill it down, put a little bit on there. And you can go fairly quick. Once you get used to this, you can put this on fairly quick. I had somebody try and put it on ahead of someone, and they weren't as fast at putting it on, and they got getting too far ahead of them, and it was starting to cure behind them before they could get to it. So you have to do what you can do safely in 20 minutes. Now on a humid day, this will start to cure up on the surface a lot faster. And the alcohol, when it runs down on here, it just disappears.
Wow.
And that's the way that goes on. That's basically all there is. Given this bevel here, that's what gives you a lot more better adhesion. And make sure, if it's an old log house, clean all your logs off. Don't, I usually scrape them. I'll take a scraper, a paint scraper, and scrape off the top of the log to get all the fuzz and the dead wood off, because you want to bond to something that's good and solid. Okay? And you do that, and you won't have any problems.
How much alcohol do you need for a house like this?
For a house,
What size house would you consider?
generally, let's see, I'd have to think. Probably a gallon, depending on the size of the house, but your average house is what, 25 by 30 or something, of log houses? Well, a lot of them are just 25 by 30, or you get into these bigger ones, much bigger. I did one that was 4,500 square feet, inside and out, and I spent a month doing that, and I think I went through 3 gallons.
3 gallons alcohol, so hardly.
Yeah,
Nothing to speak.
and you can buy your alcohol. The best place to buy it is the safety supply. You can buy it by the gallon, and it's cheaper there. Like if you go to a drugstore, so not all drugstores carry it, but some of them will carry the 99% isopropyl alcohol, and it's about $50 a gallon. You go to the safety supplies, and it's about 25. Okay? It's a lot cheaper. And people have tried to get away with using 50 or 70% alcohol. It just causes problems. And another thing is, don't let your chinking get too warm. If you have to, put it in the refrigerator when it's really hot. Just keep your tubes in the refrigerator, keep them cold. In the wintertime, you'll probably be the opposite, keep them inside so it can be warmer, okay? Because you can chink all winter long if you want with this. With water base, once it gets down below 32 degrees, you've had it. You can't do it. Because it'll freeze on there, and it won't thaw, it won't cure until it thaws out in the spring. Okay? I think you'd have an awful mess if you tried it.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And I put this on a house in Parry Sound, and I had to do the outside of it, and it was in December. It was a snowstorm. It was about -5 out, and I chinked the whole outside in this porch. It was like a screened-in porch, and I did the whole outside. All I did was keep the tubes inside. Did we mention that this is all made of solids? It's not.
It's 100%.
Yeah, it's 100% solids. There's no liquids in it, which amazes me.
Sandstone supply the foam, or is that?
We do actually bring in
Yeah.
sheets of foam, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do supply the sheet of foam.
We used to, some people will take it, it's the same stuff as they sell, it's backer rod. You can buy backer rod that's already tapered like that, but they're called grip strips. But that's only good if you've got a house that is perfectly even grips in it. And then those we call kit houses. Yeah, in kit houses, eh? But
We sell this in 4x8 sheets. It's nice
Yeah.
to fold it over.
yeah, you can see that the back, how it was on the foam, but it just lets go. When I peeled this, the only way I could get it off, I couldn't just pull it off. I had to take a knife and cut along the edges to get it off. And you can see that there's like a triangle from fitting up down in here and up in there, how it takes and gives you a wider base, so it gives you a greater span there of adhesion to there. And then it's so you can stretch this stuff. Yeah, I can't even tear it. That's how strong it is. Okay? So,
Would also be great as expansion joints in driveways or common
yeah.
walkways.
Well, apparently this formula was used in bridge construction as well. Eh? And I think it was for expansion joints. So, and it's good, the greatest stuff. It moves with all the movement of a log house. And a log house isn't going to move near as much as this will take.
Thank
Okay.
you, man. That was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. You did a
Yeah.
good job.
You're welcome.
Bag.